Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. If you haven't reached 2000 ELO yet, this video will help you a lot because I'm going to show you the best opening to reach that 2000 ELO mark. Even if you're already at 2000 ELO, you can keep playing it and it can also give you very good results. So I'm going to give you a fairly complete preparation so you can see all the repertoires and control all of your opponent's moves. What opening are you talking about, chess teacher? Well, we'll start with the double king pawn, knight f3, knight c6, d4, setting up the Scotch opening, which I'm telling you it isn't. E takes d4, and now we'll bring out the bishop to c4. This opening is called the Scotch gambit. It's not the Scotch opening, which would happen after recapturing this pawn with the knight. So what we do is give away, in quotes, this pawn, you'll see why, and we'll bring out our bishop to c4. Notice that it's like a mix of the Scotch opening and a mix of the Italian opening. The Italian opening would happen exactly like this, right? Well, notice that now we're between a Scotch and an Italian. What are the advantages of the Scotch gambit? The first one is obvious. We have two very active pieces. A bishop that is already pressing the weakest point of the black position at f7. We can castle on the next move, while black still needs 3 moves. Bring out the bishop, bring out the knight, and castle. And besides, we have freedom with this d4 pawn, since this d5 pawn is already moved, and for example, if they brought out the knight, we could already press it here, bothering it a lot. You already know that this knight is the best defender of the castled king, and on top of that, all this by giving away just one pawn that we can recover whenever we want with the move knight takes d4. You'll see. I'm going to explain all the tactics you have in this position. For example, let's start with black's moves. Here, the most logical and most played moves are knight f6, bishop c5. These two are the most played, even d6, a bit more passive, but also very common, or this bishop, instead of going to c5, for example, to e7, or, for example, over here, giving us a check, okay? Let's start, if you'd like, with this move here, bishop c5, since it's, along with knight f6, the most played, okay? One of the most played, right? Bishop c5, defending this pawn so we can't recover it instantly. Here, I'm going to recommend a spectacular move, which is c3. Notice that now we'd be allowing this pawn to be exchanged, and therefore black would be left with an extra pawn. But notice that's not the case, because if they take this pawn, we'll take advantage of the fact that this queen has all this open space, and notice that now this bishop is unprotected. We'll also take advantage of the loose piece, and with a bishop sacrifice, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, what we've done is an attraction sacrifice. We've attracted the king to the f7 square, and by playing this move, queen d5, we're checking the king, and we're recovering the bishop. So look, here the king won't move forward, obviously. Otherwise, first he'd lose the queen, and second, the king would be super exposed. The most common moves are coming here and coming here. If they come this way, we'd take with check, and then we'd win back the pawn. So here, the most normal thing is for them to go back to their original position. Here, we could take back the bishop without any problem. But I'm going to recommend first giving, this check here, and I'll explain why. Because look, we're going to win back this bishop on the next move. If they come here, we take it back with check, and we win back the pawn. But what happens if they play g6? The most played move here, without a doubt, g6. Well, now they'd be weakening this diagonal. So by taking back this bishop, they could no longer win back this pawn. Well, actually, they could, but they'd be helping us a lot, since after bishop takes b2, we'd be taking advantage of this incredible diagonal, and right now, with only one pawn down, we'd have an impressive attack. All pieces coordinated, we could castle on the next move. Black couldn't even castle, not on the next move, not ever, because they've already moved their king, and also it's very unprotected here. Therefore, we have a clear advantage. If they didn't take us here, look, if they didn't take us here and played a move, for example, like d6, a good move, we'd simply win back the pawn with the queen, and we'd have, besides this good diagonal, we'd have quite an advantage. The opponent's king can't castle, very important, so we have an incredible attacking advantage, and also, all this for free, because we've won back the pawn, we have the same material, and we have a super advantageous position. Let's quickly review this line. Knight f3, knight c6, we set up the Scotch gambit, and after the capture, we'll place the bishop on c4. We've seen that if they played this bishop on c5, we were going to give away, quote unquote, the d4 pawn, trying another exchange, but it's a pawn that can't be taken because it's already a little trap. And here you'll wonder, why? What happens if we're attacking this point and this point with the queen around here? Why don't we play queen d5 directly instead of sacrificing the bishop first? Well, look, because you see, we have a double attack, but black also has a double defense with queen e7, and we'd be losing that advantage. So here the good idea is to sacrifice the bishop, and once it's taken, take the opportunity to play this queen on d5 and make the fork. Notice that this mobility of the queen is thanks to the fact that we don't have this d4 pawn, which we've given away, quote unquote, in this gambit. You see that this gambit is very safe. Why? For several reasons. Because we can win back the pawn whenever we want, and if we don't win it back, well, we'd have a fairly clear advantage. What happens if this bishop, instead of being played to c5, is played somewhere else? There's one thing you have to know, and that is that against any bishop move from black, we're going to use the same recipe. Notice that with bishop c5, we just saw that we'd play c3, but if they play it, for example, to e7, let's see everything that would happen now with bishop e7. We're also going to play c3, and I'm going to explain why. Because after capturing this pawn on c3, we have the same move, queen d5. We're going to use the same plan. Now, this queen, as you might remember from before, why didn't playing queen d5 work when the bishop was here? It was because it had the double defense queen e7 with the bishop right in the queen spot. This queen can no longer get out, and this threat right now is very, very strong. Notice there's only one way to defend it, and that's by placing this knight over here, but it can be captured by the bishop. Notice that now this d2 pawn, again, by not being there, by having given it away, gives us this advantage of bringing out the queen and the bishop, and here we just have to capture. Notice that now they couldn't recapture the piece because queen takes f7 would come, checkmate. Therefore, here it would seem like we're winning a piece. However, here, things can get a little complicated for us if we don't know the position. This move would also be bad, because queen takes f7 mate would also come. But here, what black can do is castle, and notice that now they're threatening two things at once. They're threatening the bishop, and they're threatening this point right here. If you try to defend both pieces at once through here, notice that here, you'd be making a serious mistake. Because after this move, they'd be gaining the initiative and threatening us with a fork right here. And now, if we tried to defend it through here, it wouldn't work because they'd advance on us and recover the material. Therefore, you have to be extremely careful. Here, we don't have to retreat and, so to speak, try to save both pieces. We'd have to give away this bishop over here, taking this pawn from the enemy's castled position, and when they take our bishop, notice that here, they can't take here, because we'd take here and win a piece. So they'd have to take here. And now we would indeed recover this pawn here with the knight on c3. Notice, if we do a material count here, we have the same pawns, 6 pawns each, 3 minor pieces, we're equal in material, but we, ready to castle, have a much easier attack than our opponent on the enemy king, since he's missing the most important pawn of all, and doesn't have the knight on f6, which is the most important for defending the castled position. Therefore, here we have a pretty clear advantage. Besides, this bishop isn't easy to get out, because if it tries to come out this way, we take the rook, okay? In other words, we have a big advantage here. Sorry, by the way, this knight was here, okay? This is from the previous move, which we missed. If the knight were here, they could play this now, but the knight is still here. Let's see what happens if they play the bishop to the only square we have left. Here, we'd play bishop c4. If they play the bishop here, which would seem like a good move. Notice we've seen that if the bishop comes here, we play c3. If it comes here, we play c3, and if it comes here, we'd also play c3. Let's see why. After the captures, here we'd recapture with the pawn, importantly, not with the knight, but with the pawn. This pawn would be defended by the knight, therefore this bishop has to move. If it retreats to c5, we have the same opening as before, the same move as before, but much stronger. Now, bishop takes check, we lure the king out, and we'd come back this way without the black pawn in this position, attacking us on b2. Notice then that this bishop wouldn't be able to retreat to this position. What happens if it retreats to e7? Well, same as before. We'd go with this move here, but notice that it's even stronger. Why? Because we don't have the pawn threatened on b2. We're threatening checkmate on f7. When they defend it, we can take, and the only move here that defends, we can't capture because of the mate. The only move that defends the checkmate now is castling, and now there'd be no need to give away the bishop, in case you understood it well. Before, we had to give away the bishop because if we retreated, they'd take on b2. Now, we don't have to give away the bishop, we just retreat the bishop, and we're left with a piece advantage. So, when they play this check, we advance the pawn and exchange it. We've seen that the bishop can't retreat here or here because we'd have all these traps. However, here black has a good move, a good retreat for the bishop, which is the a5 square. Why is this square good? Well, look, unlike here, the bishop sacrifice no longer works because after the check, following the queen, we could no longer recover this bishop because it's defended by the knight. The big difference here is that the bishop is defended by the knight. Therefore, here, I would use the wildcard move. Here, we're going to castle calmly, and notice that here, black has indeed played well, but we have a tactical advantage. We have all the pieces that can come out. This bishop can come out wherever it wants, but it can even come out here to block the enemy's castling. Now, they wouldn't be able to castle, or they could come out wherever they wanted from here. Even now, this knight, this queen also has freedom, while black would still have to make some move like this, and this bishop would also be left a bit, out of play. It's true that here, it's black's good move, and they're in a good spot, but even so, we shouldn't be alarmed. Notice that after the knight comes out, we have this pawn super free to attack their knight. We can come this way to attack the castling. We have quite good play. Watch out, because here black's most natural move, which would be to continue with knight f6, is a mistake, and I'm going to show you how to punish it. Here, it seems black has played perfectly, but even so, the good thing about this opening is that we can punish it from all sides, taking advantage of the tactics. Here, we're going to play e5, attacking this knight. This knight has different exits. Let's first see one that seems natural, which is coming here with the knight, and it wouldn't work. Practically, we've won here with this move here. We're threatening this double attack here, defended by the bishop, and also we're attacking this knight that's exposed. Therefore, we'd be winning the game. What happens if instead of retreating here, they retreat here? Notice that now it wouldn't work, because here they'd recapture this pawn with knight takes e5, they'd defend this point, recover a pawn, and also be attacking the white bishop. Therefore, here we'd have an even better move than coming with the knight here, and it's simply with the bishop sacrifice. Bishop takes f7 again, and when they take our bishop, we wouldn't do the discovered check. Notice that now the king has to move away again, and he can't take because we have it defended by our bishop, and when he moves away, we would take this knight. Therefore, we have won this pawn here. And we have also gained a brutal initiative, and we would be much better off. Notice that here there is even another square where the knight could move away when we play e5, and this square is e4. Here, sorry, I'm missing this bishop over here. Here, when they play knight e4, what we are going to do is play queen d5, and take advantage again of this weak point on f7. We are threatening mate, and we are also threatening this knight. The only move that saves seems to be this one, but here we would simply take. It doesn't matter with the bishop or with the knight because it's defended. They are defended among themselves, and the queen could not capture. Therefore, we would also be winning. Winning! The thing is that they don't have to play knight f6. We have seen that if they play knight f6 here, we are winning with e5. Okay, let's see what other moves black has. Here, black could think, okay, I've seen everything that happens if I bring the knight out through f6, so I'm going to bring it out through e7. Well, notice that here we are also going to take advantage of all the tactics, and we are going to go all out with knight over here. Why? Because now we would be pressuring black to castle. Since they don't have the knight on f6, which is the best defender of the castle, and they have moved it to e2, what we want is for them to castle. Here, when they castle to protect this point here, notice that this knight doesn't defend these squares here, and we are going to come with the queen through h5, sorry. Very important, we are threatening a checkmate, and we are threatening an incredible triple fork over here. And notice that the only defense for the mate is to play h6, forced. There is no other way to stop the checkmate, because notice that if they advance this one, it's mate directly, they have to play h6, and now here we will take with the knight. Taken with the bishop is not as good because they retreat, and now they attack our knight, and when it retreats, we could have more problems. Here the good move is to capture with the knight. Notice that now we are threatening the queen. She has to move away. When she moves away, if you want, you can give a discovered check, and here you would already win the queen. But even better, we have a checkmate in 3 that I'm going to explain to you right now. Therefore, subscribe to this channel. If you are enjoying the video, think that I'm giving you all this explanation for free. So if you leave me a like, I will be super happy. Share it with your friends or keep it just for yourself if you only want to know it yourself. Now I'll show you this checkmate in 3. Notice that here we give a double check. What happens with the double check? You already know that in chess, a double check can only be defended by moving the king. Why? Because we cannot capture both pieces of the check at the same time, or we cannot block both checks at the same time. Therefore, double check, we have to move the king. And now we would give a double check again with the knight and with the queen. Notice that the h6 pawn is no longer there. And when he moves the king, now this knight protected by the bishop would give a checkmate down here. So let's review all of this. Notice that we've already calculated all the bishop's moves. We saw that if the bishop came out here, we had this sacrifice, right? We saw that if the bishop came out here, we'd also have this move here, because the queen could no longer get out. We've also seen what happens if this bishop comes over here to give a check. We discussed this, that if they went back again, we had the same thing, a bishop sacrifice. If they came back this way, we had the same thing, queen over here. And if they played the good move, which is defended by the knight, we just used the wild card move, waited to see what they'd do. If they brought the knight out here, we'd attack it and have that whole strategy to win. If they brought the knight out here, because they'd realize this strategy, we'd come over here to castle. And here many of you will ask, and I know you're very smart, what happens if instead of castling, they play this move here, knight to e5, defending this point and also attacking this bishop? Well, look, here's a very easy tactic. This move was good because it was defended by the knight. Once this knight retreats, all we have to do is take here. Check. When they take with the knight, we take back. They're forced to take. Why? Because we're making a fork, and when they take, well, we just give the double check here with the queen. We can't go here because this knight is defending. We give it here, and when they defend with g6, we win back this piece. And if you look, we're left with the same pieces, but with a spectacular space and tactical advantage. We have our king castled, while the opponent's is out in the open, and they can no longer castle with this bishop, which can come out anywhere, and this knight too. Therefore, this bishop also has difficulties getting out. Let's see what happens if after this check, taken here, and retreating, we said we'd use the wild card, and if they brought this knight out here or here, we had every chance of winning. Let's see what happens if they play a very flexible move, like d6. Well, look here. I'm going to explain several ideas I have to crush the opponent's king. Here, I assure you the best move is queen to b3, and it's also very strong. We're putting an impressive battery on the f7 point. Also, no, we're also attacking this point here, so this bishop cannot retreat. And here you're going to ask me, why is the queen better here than over here attacking for a mate? Because if we come with the queen to d5, they have bishop to e6, which attacks our queen, and when we flee, they'd capture here, and goodbye to the whole attack. But if this queen comes here, that bishop move is no longer possible, as we'd win a pawn and also be giving a spectacular check and coming in with a full attack. Therefore, this move is no longer possible. What happens here if black plays, for example, defending with the knight over here? Well, we'll just take this knight, and we're threatening to enter on the next move. Therefore, we're running out of options here. The only option left is to bring the queen to defend this point. Notice that this is the most typical solution for black, and what we're going to do here is give away the center pawn. We're taking advantage of the fact that the king is still in the center, plus it's aligned with the queen. Watch out, tactical issues here with the rook attacking the queen and pinning it against the king. And here we're giving away this pawn, a pawn that could be taken in two different ways, with the knight or with the pawn. Let's start with the knight, because it's a little bit easier to explain. Therefore, we will capture this knight right here. If they capture with the pawn, since it's not defended, we make a double attack, check, and we attack the king. As you can see, the tactical themes repeat themselves over and over again. And if they capture with the queen, this point is no longer defended, so we would capture with the bishop. Let's see what happens if instead of capturing the k and I, sorry, here, let's put it back how it was. What happens if instead of capturing this pawn with the knight, they capture it, here with the pawn? This is a little bit harder to explain, but you're going to understand it perfectly as well. Notice that here we have a very good move, which is to bring out our bishop to a3, and we'd be attacking this queen here. We had one more piece to the attack, and this queen, to keep defending this point, can't come here because we'd have a move like this and we'd be winning instantly. They'd have to come to f6 to keep defending, and here, with a lot of cold blood, we're going to bring the last piece we need for the attack. Notice that here, down 2 pawns and with a lot of cold blood, we start moving a knight that we had on b1. Notice here that black has to castle right now. Bringing this knight out through here wouldn't be a very good move, since they couldn't castle because of his bishop that's pinning the castle, so they'd have to come through here. And what we're going to do is, well, do this to castle on the next one, obviously, in case it wasn't clear to anyone. We're going to add this piece to the attack, attacking this queen. The only square available to keep defending this point is to come through here. Notice that now this queen is more and more cornered, and we're just going to continue by capturing the knight with the bishop we had placed on a3. And now, notice that if they take with the knight, this pawn is left uncovered, and after we take the pawn, we're almost forcing them to take this knight that we're giving away. Why? Because we're attacking this point with 3 pieces. Therefore, they almost have to take this knight right here. We're also giving away a knight, and here notice that we don't want to take with the bishop, but rather we want to take with the queen. Therefore, we have to give a discovered attack. We put in a check right here. Notice that now we're doing a discovered attack, but also we're really pushing for this checkmate with the queen. If they come this way, we'll take with the queen, and when they come here, we'd simply bring one of the 2 rooks into the attack, and notice that this attack would already be lethal. Notice that if we do the discovery, and instead of covering, they move the king, a spectacular checkmate would follow. Sorry, there's a pawn missing here. This spectacular checkmate would come since this king couldn't go anywhere, not here or here, since the bishop is covering both squares. So we've already gone over all the bishop's moves. Look here. After bishop c4, we've reviewed all the bishop's moves through here. Through here, we've reviewed all the variations of this move. So we have it completely under control. But also, in this video, I want to show you absolutely everything. And now we're going to see what happens when they play the other move. Also very good, knight f6. Notice that here they'd be letting us play e5 directly, which is actually the move I'm going to recommend. Although castling would also be a very good move if you want, okay? Since black hasn't castled yet and they still need to develop a piece, it would also be a very good move. What makes this opening so good compared to many other openings? Well, notice that we're very dynamic. We've sacrificed a pawn, but we've gained a lot of freedom with our pieces, and we have many tactical themes. Also, we've removed black's biggest roadblock, so to speak, which is this pawn here that doesn't let this d4 pawn move. And now here, I'm going to recommend the move e5. Let's see, as we saw before, this knight's best move is to come with the knight through here, and notice that here it's attacking the pawn with both knights at once. So what I'm going to recommend here is setting a trap for the opponent by castling and letting them take this pawn. What happens if they take this pawn right here? Well, look, first we're going to exchange knights, and I'll explain why. And now we're going to pin this knight right here. Notice that this knight is pinned, we're attacking it, it can't move because the king is behind it, and if they defend it, we'll attack it and win a piece with the pawn. Why is it so important to exchange the knights? This is like this and this is like this. Why is it important to exchange the knights instead of playing rook 1 right away? Well, notice that now, after defending the knight, it can't be attacked by our f4 pawn because we have a knight in between. Therefore, it's important to exchange knights first, and now, after RO, after rook 1, no matter how they defend the knight, it doesn't matter, we'll play f4 and we'd already be winning this piece. Let's see what happens if after e5 and placing this knight attacking and we castle, instead of taking this pawn, which we've seen would lose the knight, they play bishop c5, a pretty good move. Here, what we're going to do is simply give away this bishop again. Bishop takes f7. We'll bring the king out, as always. We'll place this knight, making a discovered attack, giving check, and when they move, we'll take this knight here, winning back the piece and leaving us with a pretty overwhelming advantage. Here, notice that the good move is queen e7, but nobody, I'm telling you, nobody who doesn't know this line by heart, which is so few people that it's very rare you'll encounter it, is going to play queen e7. Instead, they'll play the two main moves, which are knight takes pawn, attacking the queen and defending this point, or first d6, attacking the queen here. But both moves, notice, will transpose to the same position. Let's start by seeing what happens when they play knight takes e5. Here, what we're going to play is queen e4, and I'll explain why. 1, we're attacking this knight on e5, and 2, we're threatening to check and win this piece. Therefore, the only move that defends both pieces at once is d6. If they play it, you just capture a piece either here or here, and that's it. What happens if they play it, which is the best move? Well, here we have a very good move. We're still coming in with the check. Only move is for the king to move, because if they give us the bishop, we take it, and that's it. The only move is to bring the king here, and now what we're going to do is play f4. Notice we're attacking this knight, and the knight can't retreat because we'd be delivering checkmate, so they'd lose the knight and we'd be opening lines. Therefore, we would be completely winning here. What if instead of taking with the knight, they take with the pawn, which is also very likely, right? Imagine they take with the pawn. I mean, if instead of taking with the knight, they play d6, which we said was the other very likely move. Now, instead of coming here, what we're going to do is queen f3 check. Notice that the king is here. We're going to play queen f3, threatening checkmate, and we're also threatening to come in through here. So we're encouraging them to take with the knight by threatening this checkmate. But as I said, we come back in here. When the king moves, we play f4 again, and same as before, if the knight moves, we deliver checkmate, and if the knight doesn't move, we take it with material gain, and also setting up checkmate attacks in the next few moves. Let's see now, if they play this move here, as we're analyzing right now, knight f6, and we said we'd play here, Black would come here, we'd castle, taking advantage of the fact that if they take the pawn, we trade and come with rook e1, winning a knight. And also taking advantage of the fact that if they play the other move we mentioned, bishop c5, what we had to do was this, sacrifice the bishop, and then, with the discovered attack, take here. But what if instead of either taking or bringing the bishop here, they bring the bishop to e2? Good move. Why? Because now neither of the two tactical themes works. Notice that now rook e1 with the pin no longer works because the bishop is there. And it also doesn't work to give check here with the discovered attack because this point is defended by the bishop and the queen, so we can no longer jump here. What we're going to do here is the following. We're going to take advantage of this knight's poor position and try to prevent it from returning to the center. Therefore, we're going to play rook e1, defending this point so they can't take it, because if we let them take it with this bishop here, we couldn't take advantage of the pin. Here, Black can continue with any move, castling for example, and here what we're going to do is kick this knight out of here. Notice that this knight can only come here, and simply, after the capture, we leave the king completely exposed. And now, the great thing about this very good opening is that whenever we want, and when we see there's no more attack, we win back the pawn we were down on d4. And now we simply have the same material, but we also have a brutal attack. Our pieces are well coordinated, and the enemy king is exposed. So we have a very large advantage. So we've seen the option after d5, bringing the knight over here to attack the pawn, but we haven't discussed the move knight e4. This is very easy to explain. You have to remember that if they play knight e4, we'll play queen e2. We're forcing this knight to retreat. Why? Because if they tried to defend it, for example with e5, we'd capture en passant, and now this knight would be falling. The same thing happens if they play f5, we capture en passant, and this knight is completely defenseless. Therefore, the only good move is to retreat this knight. Notice that it can't go anywhere else because of the pawn. They have to go to c5, and here we're simply going to castle. Notice that when our attack ends, we castle, our wildcard move, and now, whatever they do, our plan is to come through here with the rook and swap the rook and queen's positions. Many of you might also be wondering if the move queen e7 works. Notice that this move is a mistake, not just in this opening, but it's a very common mistake that happens in many openings. White can already castle, Black puts a queen in front of their king, and that's very dangerous. Notice that now, why does Black play this? Because we can't take the knight, since it's pinned, but we're simply going to castle. And notice that now this pawn cannot be taken, because after the exchanges, rook e1 would come, pinning the queen to the king, and they'd lose the queen. unless they place this knight in the center, but we'd simply attack it here, and this knight would be totally immobile, threatening rook takes or even pawn takes again. And, well, guys and girls, that's it for this great lesson on the best opening to reach 2000 elo or even more, let's be honest. I hope you loved it. Leave me your support if you liked it, because I've worked really hard on it, honestly. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!